That's all we need.
Hello and welcome to another edition of the Tigers Down Under. I'm your host Alex, and with me today I have Dill. How are you, Dill?
Good, mate. How you doing?
Not too bad, not too bad. We were just talking before we went to air, looking back on the clip of the own goal, which was quite remarkable. But yeah, look, it's a funny one. We'll talk about the Luton game, and then we'll talk Sheffield Wednesday. But it's a game that there's a podcast I listen to called the Not the Top 20 podcast, which for any championship supporters I would recommend if you don't listen to it. It's like they're very knowledgeable. They round up all the games across Championship, League One, League Two. They have a phrase when they get to a game that typically it's like a 0-0 game where they just say it's a game that happened and don't really talk about it because it's a game in name only. It just not like no talking points, no anything out of it. And I would say, other than the own goal, this game is certainly just a game that happened. I think neither team probably deserved to win or lose it on the balance of play. And it's separated by one of the more frustrating or more crazy own goals that I think I've seen. But we will talk about it. We'll talk about it as much as we can, maybe more so in terms of the context for now where we find ourselves for the last 7 games of the season. But we were both pretty confident coming into this one. We both thought, good chance to get another win at home. Luton pretty poor away from home. And it just didn't eventuate. And it seems like it's sort of a running theme for us. I think I saw the stat. We've got 1 win in 15 post-international breaks, which is pretty remarkable. But it's just, I guess, the concerning factor being the lack of chances created, the lack of clear-cut shots that we had in the game. I don't know. I know you didn't catch all of the game, but I guess reflecting on the outcome and reflecting on, a similar story in terms of not getting chances away in the game, how did you find it, or what did you think of it?
Yeah, I mean, like I said to you earlier, only caught the first 10 or 15. But, at the start, it looked like we were doing fairly all right. And I think I was saying in the group chat that, I was really excited to wake up the next day and see the score, and got a little bit of disappointment at I think 3:30 in the morning. But anyways, we were talking about being quite confident going into this game, and I think I even might have mentioned that it's a perfect game for us to sort of just go in there, win the game, win it well, and get out, sort of thing. And I was sort of mentioning last week or the week before, I think it was last week, that Sayers had a really good opportunity to do that. And because I was talking about how the better teams, they seem to ice these games, and it's sort of a bit more clear cut. But even looking at the stats now, it kind of paints a different picture. I mean, 14 shots, 3 on target out of the 14 doesn't seem too great, but 65%
Was that for us?
possession.
I didn't even realize we had 3 on target. That's interesting.
Yeah. 65% possession, 501 passes opposed to their 277. And so, passing accuracy is up there, 83%, and theirs is 68, which, sort of indicates to me there might have been a few, cut-ins and, intercepts, but 10 fouls on either side. 10 corners. It looks, it'd be interesting. Well, I say it'd be interesting to watch this one back based on the stats, but obviously not.
It's interesting because so for me, thinking back on shots or chances that were created, I mean, Hughes had a shot late on that tested Kaminsky where it was, sort of edge of the area, just took a long range shot at it, and it was sort of, a typical sort of palmed it over the top of the crossbar where it was a decent chance created. And look, it is a game where I think the scoreline does sort of bias your perception of it to an extent. And to your point, clearly the stats weren't horrible. But I think, the 3 shots on target probably tells a bit of a story that it's just not enough chances created at home. Interestingly, I find these games where we dominate possession, we actually tend to perform worse in, which is, I suppose, counterintuitive to an extent, but also, I guess, suggests a team that's happy to sit back and let us have the ball, particularly after they scored, I'm sure that inflated the possession stats a bit. But even in the first half, I do think we had more of the ball. And I thought we looked reasonably good with it. Like we were putting passes together really. And I think I remember commenting on it in the chat that we were putting, passes together really well. I thought Gelhardt looked really positive at times. But it just felt like, as is often the case, is, when we're trying to break down a side, we just don't have that key to unlock a team. And I mean, I look back on that Oxford game that we watched together where Puerta did score the winner, where it's, you're almost relying on a player taking that chance and taking the game on, where more often than not, our players just don't do it.
Yeah, 100%. And I guess what you were saying before about how we don't do as well with high possession sometimes, I think, I resonate with that a lot. I think maybe it's not that we try to be too clinical, but I think it's a good metric in not having someone up front who can just take those chances all the time. And you see, I think I was saying last week, I would have loved to see Balumi through, this, run home and see what he can do. But yeah, we're just sort of lacking in that department of someone being able to sort of take control. And I thought Gelhardt sort of showed a bit of that in the Oxford game, at least. But yeah, I can't comment on this one. But yeah, we just need someone who can bring it home for us.
And I mean, look, it does come at the right time. Like Pedro back next week from suspension, so we will get him back as that more clinical finisher. I think it's interesting. I mean, I've seen a bit of commentary on Joseph and the fact he still hasn't scored after 11 games and whether he's up to playing at championship level. And I think, I don't know, it's tough. It's almost like we just can't really win with what we do in that striking position because we bring in Delap on loan last season and he does so well, but it's only a loan and off he goes to Ipswich and we spend $2.5 million or so, whatever it ended up being for Joseph. And you think that's like a decent amount of money. And if he hit the ground running like Delap, we go, brilliant. We've got him on a permanent deal. He's ours and we're, making money on him essentially. But as it stands, we're sort of saying, well, is it a bit of money wasted on Joseph? And I think it's hard to judge him too much at this stage because you'd like to see him with like a preseason under his belt, sort of settled into the club. And I know we kind of keep saying it, but if he can just score a goal or two and get off the mark and get that confidence up, it would, make a world of difference. But it's tough for him. And so I think, Pedro coming back will be a big help for us up top. But otherwise, I mean, look, I don't know. I thought Kamara had a reasonable game. I did see a comment, which it's hard to disagree with, that there were a few times we would get good crosses into the box and he basically would just stand under the ball and not make an effort to jump for it, where you think you have to show a little bit more keenness or desire to get the ball, which he doesn't always tend to do. Amrabat came on late. I don't think he offered a whole lot. He does what he often does. He beats a man and he can get a ball in, but just doesn't really create too much with it. I thought Enrique probably similar. But otherwise, not too many call-outs. I mean, look, if I go through my votes for this one, I had Gelhardt top because I thought Gelhardt was, just about our most creative player, particularly in the first half. I thought he dropped off second half as most players did once the goal went in. Puerta I gave the 2 and Hughes the 1 because I thought Hughes was solid in defense. And it's just such a tough game to dissect because you think no one really was awful, but just there was no one willing to take the game on or, up the tempo at all at any point.
As a team, doesn't seem like it was too cohesive in the end that it mattered anyways.
And so the implications are, and I think sort of worsened by the fact, obviously, Luton below us getting the win, but also Stoke getting the win was pretty damaging in the sense that you're starting to have less teams sitting below us in the table. Cardiff only drew, which was good, and Oxford lost. Portsmouth getting the win as well, and Swansea getting a point against Leeds. There's a lot of teams around us suddenly picking up points. With Derby to play tomorrow morning against Preston, if Derby win that, it means that basically, Cardiff drop into the relegation zone and then we're one spot above the relegation zone. So it starts to tighten up again. It's, just as we're thinking we're starting to pull clear, it drags us back in.
Yeah, exactly. What are we, 20th at the moment? So we got Cardiff, Derby, Luton and Plymouth under us. And yeah, Luton, Derby, and Cardiff, they're all within a win to be above us. And I don't know, we'll just have to sort of buckle down and ride the wave sort of going into the end of the season. And hopefully we can get over this a little bit quicker. Like I hope, we don't stew on this one too much in terms of maybe the team or the media. Just because, well, for one, I think it should have never, ended this way. I would have been happy with a point, but 3 points would have been a lot better. But yeah, I guess we rebuild and go on to Sheffield.
Yeah, good segue there into the Sheffield Wednesday game. And I think this, we've still got Derby to come, but I actually think the fact that the bulk of our games are against these sorts of mid-table clubs who don't have a whole lot to play for. So I think we've got like Sheffield Wednesday, we've got Preston, we've got there's somebody else as well, but there's like, three or four. Watford was the other one I was thinking of, yeah. And Swansea as well, I think.
So we got Sheffield, Watford, Coventry, Swansea, Preston, Derby, and Portsmouth.
Yeah, so most of those, other than Derby, Coventry, and maybe Portsmouth, depending on how they're going. So that's 4 of the 7 games, I'd say, are against teams that have effectively finished their season. So Sheffield Wednesday now sitting 12th in the table, 2 wins and a draw in their last 5, but they're effectively out of the top 6 race unless something crazy was to happen. So you sort of think playing those sides as opposed to relegation battlers or promotion battlers arguably is the better set of fixtures to have, because it means teams that, 85th minute locked at 0-0, they're not going to be the sides going hell for leather to try and get a winner. So I think that does play into our favor a little bit. And, talking about playing sides where we have the higher possession being games that we struggle in, playing against these sorts of sides who might have more of the ball themselves, maybe plays into our hands a little bit more. They're not going to sit back as deep against us. I don't know. What do you make of Sheffield Wednesday?
Well, they're at 12th. I think they'll want to win the 12th Shield if get to the end there. I think that's always a prestigious award.
Was it you that mentioned it? Was it that we finished 12th the most times or something?
Yeah, I think it might have been. There's on the EFL Championship subreddit, I think there was like a chart that showed, just they're obsessed with whoever comes 12th at every season, and I think Hull City has been there the most in the last however many years. But yeah, I don't know. Sheffield, they've seemed to be doing really well since that whole situation not too long ago. But yeah, I don't know where to put them. If something, if we were in their position, we'd probably be saying, let's go gangbusters, because there's like a 0.1% chance of us getting into the playoffs if the math, if the footy math comes out. But I guess the points that I'm looking at, we're on 41. I think I've said a couple of times before, 50 points is usually where you need to end up in order to stay above statistically. But yeah, I don't know. We'll see how we go.
Yeah, I mean, looking at the table, it might be a little bit harsh to say they're out of the playoff race just yet. I mean, they're only 5 points off, but it is the fact that there's West Brom, Borough, Bristol City, Watford, Norwich, and Blackburn all above them. So you think, yes, they have to make up the 5 points, but they've also got to make up the 5 points plus, whatever else on top of that to top off those teams. Outpace those sides as well. It does make things tricky, but yeah, as you say, like if we were in their position, we'd certainly still be holding out hope. And I guess with their inferior goal difference, interestingly, that maybe plays into our hands. That means that they're sort of going out for it, going, we need to, add some goals. We have to play pretty open and attacking football to give ourselves a chance. Maybe it plays into our hands.
Yeah, that's a good shout.
So it's going to be interesting in that sense. I think. Yeah, I don't know. I think it's also an interesting game just from the perspective that under Sayers we've been consistently inconsistent, perhaps. Like I don't think we've ever lost 2 games in a row, and I think we've usually been able to almost go like win, draw, loss, essentially in our form line. So it does, I suppose, pose the question of like, as you said, like how much we can bounce back from the Luton game, how much we can sort of shake it off. Pedro back in, Palmer now up to full fitness. we've got reasonable squad options, good sort of flexibility. It's now about picking the right side and getting a result in this one. And I think, look, I don't know. It's hard to say. Like, I'd probably take a point from it, but it's hard not to just say that we really need 3 points from every game. But I think, like you said, if we're targeting that 50 points and we're on, what is it now, 41?
Yeah,
you're saying 3 more wins. 3 more wins, and I'm saying probably there's the 4 games: Watford, Swansea, Preston, and Watford, Swansea, Preston, and Sheffield Wednesday, probably the 4 games to target. So if we get 3 wins from those, or 2 wins from those, and beat Derby or someone, it makes a big difference. I mean, we've got Jez in the chat saying, so disappointing with such a big crowd. I think that's the other thing that, I don't know if we've got a stat on that one, but whenever we seem to do these ticket offers and pack out the stadium, it's always the games that end up so deflating, which is such a...
It's not a fun one, is it? And I guess we were talking last week around trying to flip the script on, our home games. The next one that we got, is it a home one? No, we're away for the next 2, for the next 3. No, next 2. So we got Sheffield and Watford, and then we're back for Coventry. So that should be a fun one, at least. But yeah, it actually might play into our favor that we're playing away for the next 2. So I think we need to take every statistic we can at the moment.
Yeah. I mean, our away form is so much stronger than our home form. I think, I mean, look, we can even bring Watford into the discussion as well, because that's midweek before the Coventry game, so we can look ahead to the Watford game. We sort of have been talking about Watford as well anyway, but as another team that's in that sort of patch of sides that probably aren't going to make the playoff places. We got, what was it, a 1-1 draw with them in one. Was it wasn't Sayas's first game, but I think it was one of his first games where we really could have won it, and then they scored quite late on. I almost look at these 2 games as a patch and say, look, if we get 4 points from these 2 games, that's putting us in a pretty strong position. Like that, we're then sitting on 45 points and we're getting pretty close to that 50-point target.
Yeah, 100%. I think they might have even been, they're 9th at the moment, but I think when we drew, they were a lot higher. So
yeah.
Because I think it was a bit of a surprise that we were in the game a lot, but from memory, I think we're talking back then, it sort of gave us a bit more confidence, and maybe, like, I can't remember if it was when we had a few more injuries as well, but it seemed like from memory, it was a turning point for us, especially after Volta and whatnot. So
was that
let's bring it up again?
Was that the game where Bedia scored the handball that I'm thinking of? Is that one where like Palmer or someone shot? Was it Palmer or was it even?
Yeah, we got a goal. Yeah, Bedia at 82 minutes.
Was it the German bloke? What, I've completely forgotten his name now.
And then Rocco Vada at 88.
I've completely forgotten his name. Who's the German midfielder we brought in?
Malem?
Malem, that's it. Oh gosh, can't believe I've forgotten his name. I'm pretty sure
Malem's
yeah. We just have so many players these days. It's hard to keep track of them all. But I think I remember the game, and that's right. So look, I think if we can sort of target 4 points from this set of games, and I think that's probably the better way to approach these sorts of sets of games, is rather than saying we need 3 points from Sheffield Wednesday, it's more you look at Sheffield Wednesday and Watford as a collective and you say we need probably 4 points from those 2 games, whichever order it comes in. I think is the way to look at it, because I think before the Luton game, we were averaging about 4 points over the 2 points a game over the previous 4 games. So if we can get 4 points from 2 games here and kind of keep that average going, I think that's more than enough. And I think, with Pedro back, as I said, I think that's a massive help for us as well up top. But I don't know if there'd be any other changes I'd make, which is what it's so frustrating after a game like Luton where you go, we didn't actually play that badly. I don't think there's many players I'd change around.
That's what I was about to ask. Like, is there anyone that sort of shines that you would change? But
I mean, look, unless you're kind of going, so you go Pedro in for Joseph. Maybe you go, because what are we doing? We've got Gelhardt and Kamara on the wings at the moment. Whether you, it's so tough, right? Because I almost feel like Gelhardt's better centrally because that's where I feel like he's been scoring a couple of his goals. But then you're maybe taking Palmer out of the side and you're putting like Burstow on the left wing or Enrique. What's his name? Enrique, isn't it? From Fenerbahce. Jeez, I'm struggling with everyone's names at the moment.
Too many.
But you put him on the other wing. It's probably the only other option I'd go with. Like I can't think because Barry's not back until for another couple of weeks. So yeah, I don't know. There's just maybe you play around a bit with the central midfield. Maybe you bring in. I don't even know. Like maybe you bring in Crooks for Palmer, and because I feel like Palmer's really effective off the bench. Maybe you look at the fact that we've got 3 games in. We don't actually even have 3 games in a week because we've got Sheffield Wednesday this Sunday. We've got Saturday. We've got Watford on the Tuesday night / Wednesday morning, but then we don't play Coventry until the Monday night.
Yeah, so okay, there's a bit more of a gap.
Yeah, I was thinking, whether you rotate Palmer and Crooks and stuff to kind of keep everyone a bit fresh, but we do have a bit of time between the games. So, look, I think
Did Slater start?
No, Slater didn't start. So,
okay.
Whether he comes in for one of the games to start to, maybe he plays against Watford, perhaps. Because I don't know if Alzate has the legs to play 3 games in 8 days or whatever it would be. But look, I think as much as we can keep the side reasonably stable, I think it's probably the way to go.
Yeah, especially with this run in. I think we spoke about it last week. If we can keep the same players starting and make only like a couple of changes here and there, depending on how the games are coming or the fixtures are landing, at least we can cap out this year with consistency. But hopefully the stats show the same.
Yeah. So what's your before we sign off? Do you have score predictions for these 2 games? What's your confidence levels feeling like for Sheffield Wednesday and Watford?
For Sheffield Wednesday, well, what's their form looking like? Sorry, let me just check. They're coming off. Oops, sorry, 1 second. So they're coming off a draw and a loss before that, and then 2 wins and then a loss. So I don't know. Let's go 1-1 for Sheffield, and then for Watford, they don't seem like they're doing too great in form wise. So let's go 1-0.
Nice. Yeah, I think. Yeah, that's probably a 1-1 with Sheffield Wednesday, and then maybe a 1-0, 2-1 against Watford. I think.
Yeah.
I'd certainly take that, and I think. You do start to have to think like, look at Cardiff and so on. And Cardiff have quite a tough run in to come as well. I think they've got a couple of the top 6 sides still to play. So it is, we're down to 7 games. And I sort of said similar last week, but 7 games left to play. It does start to get close to mathematical where you go, if we pick up 4 points from these 2 games, there's 5 games left. All of a sudden you're getting pretty close to the magic number to make it official. So look, fingers crossed we can get the 4 points or better from these 2 games. And thank you for joining me for this one, Dill.
Cheers for having me.
No worries. Hopefully we're back here next week talking about 4 points or better from these 2 games so we can just start to pull away from that relegation zone a bit more. But thank you everyone else for listening in for this one. We'll be back next week. And until then, come on, City.